Hi, ladies, and welcome to this interview with Prerika. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us today and share about your career. Could you take just a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell the girls a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure. So I am a strategy consultant. I'm actually a director of innovation in a large multinational company that I work for. And I have been in the management consulting space now for about 7 years. Before that, I got my MBA from Georgetown University. And before that, I worked mostly in the training and development and executive coaching space.
So, what exactly is it then that a consultant, especially like somebody who does like strategy and consulting, what exactly is it that you do? Because it sounds really cool, but then it's also kind of like, what is it? Do you get that question a lot too? Like, what is
I
it
do. That's
that
such a
you
good question. Yeah. So, what I do is I work mostly with Fortune 500 companies and I help them solve their biggest challenges. So, for example, I had a client that was in hospitality, which is the hotel business, and they wanted to be better connected to their coworkers that are actually in the hotel. And so, how do we do that, right? How do we effectively work together? And so, those are some of the kinds of problems that I solve for my clients.
That's really interesting. That because I don't think a lot of people think about the fact that like an organization has the like problems with their employees communicating with one another and that kind of thing, and then having to bring somebody in to do that. It's almost kind of like, to me, it sounds almost kind of like therapy for the company.
Kind of. I like to think of it as being a coach because I think that no matter how big or small an organization you are, whether your revenue is in the billions of dollars or whether you're a single person, I always feel that you can benefit from the support of someone else because it takes a really it's a fresh perspective. It's somebody who's coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, who's looking at your organization or your business or you and saying, okay, here's all the things that you've missed and that you didn't see. And this is how we're going to bring some structure to the problem. So that's why I find so much value in consulting as well as coaching. And as you know, Christina, I've also launched a career coaching business to help empower women. And so I feel like they really go hand in hand because at the root of it, it's about helping people and empowering them.
And I think that's really great. What you brought up is the fact of like having that fresh perspective, and that no matter where you're at, getting that is really really important and very valuable. Because a lot of times you're just so in it, you're either just so in your business, so in your life, or whatever, that you aren't able to see things clearly maybe as they are. So that's a really awesome job to have, and it's a great skill I would think to have as well, to be able to provide that for people. So awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm so happy that I pivoted into this path. And I know that was, something that you had asked about earlier is making that shift. And so for me, I had just identified before I went to business school that at the root of everything, I just loved helping people and solving these big problems. And I knew at that time that I didn't have a business background. And I wanted to get stronger in things like finance and accounting and strategy and all of those things. And that's why I made a very strategic decision to go and get my MBA and I had to really measure, the ROI. So we talk a lot about that in business, but on a personal level, it's so important when you're thinking about investing in yourself, whether that's an education, a certification, a degree, anything, right? Why am I doing this? Is this something that I'm really passionate about? And then if I do it, right, what is my return going to be? And I think that sometimes it's qualitative. So it's about the way that it makes you feel and if you feel empowered and good about it. And then there's also the financial component, which is, will this help me make more money and will this help me get to my dreams? And so I had to really weigh that out because an MBA is a 2-year commitment. And so those are all the things that I thought about is how much is this going to cost me in terms of time and money? And then also those 2 years that I would be giving up my income, right? So what was that going to get me at the end?
Absolutely. So, and just ladies, the in case you're not certain what that terminology ROI means, that's return on investment. So, what are you going to get out of what you're putting into? Um, So was there something that was there something that happened within your life, or like what motivated you to start thinking in that way of like I really need to be doing something maybe a little bit differently?
That's such a good question. I don't know if it was like one defining moment, but I think that there was somewhere in my last job before my MBA. So I worked for a huge cable company doing executive coaching and training and development before my MBA. And I think there was a time where I was kind of, I had a lot of free time, to be honest with you. It was like I would be done with my role so quickly. I had taken on all these extra projects, I was completing them. And I thought there's just, there's got to be something more for me. Like, I know that I'm so talented and I have all these things around me. And I know that I want to help people. And what happened is while I was working at that company had hired a lot of consultants to come in and help. And as I was chatting with them, I realized this is something that I really enjoy doing and I would really like to do. I think it's get involved in the strategy and have that super high level view of a company. And so that's what got me thinking about consulting. And a lot of the consulting companies that I was interested in working for did require an MBA. And even if, they said they didn't require the MBA, they required some skill sets that I knew that I was missing. So while I was ultra confident, I knew that I wanted to fill my skill gap with that business degree.
So to be a consultant, you've talked about some of the, especially with what you're doing now with the strategy and consulting, you've talked about getting your MBA. What are some of the other things that if we've got some of the girls here who are interested in following this kind of career path, what are some of the other things that they need to be doing to prepare themselves for that other than getting that MBA?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And just to caveat, in my case, I decided to get an MBA. It is not a requirement. There are actually a lot of consultants that don't have an MBA, but that's something that I felt like I needed at the time. So I would say the number one skill set in my experience as a career coach and as a consultant is confidence. That is really the only thing that you need is that belief in yourself that you have what it takes, right? So I would say that's the number one thing that you need to have because no matter who you're interacting with, whether it's clients, whether it's your team, whether it's your partner at the consulting company, you need to be really strong in that self belief. So I feel like that is the number one kind of skill that people need to have. Um, the next thing that I would say is passion, right? Passion for solving problems and helping people. Because I think no matter what career you choose or what job you take on, there's always going to be some challenges that come up. And the thing that gets us through those challenges is that passion, right? And we think about what's the underlying reason? Why are we doing all of this? And it's to help people. And that really helps us kind of work through those challenges. So those are two really important skills. Then I would say on the technical side, I think it's really important to have very good problem solving skills. So how do I look at something that is really ambiguous? Because now think about it, there's some really large companies coming to you for your expertise, and it's really about taking something that's big and breaking it down into smaller pieces so that you can easily create a solution. So I would say that's really the third skill set for me, and those are the things that are important.
So you bring up a really good point. So confidence, the and the problem solving skills, um, confidence. I think that is something that you work on that by honestly like putting yourself into situations that make you a little bit uncomfortable, and you just keep repeatedly doing that. And when you see that you're able to get through it, that helps build that confidence. Confidence is like a muscle, and it's but with the problem solving skills, um, what how do you build on those? Like how do you strengthen your problem solving skills? Are there certain classes that you take? Are there certain situations that you put yourself into? Like how do you strengthen that skill set?
So again, just like you said with the confidence or any skill, it's about building that muscle and practicing, right? And so a lot of times what I think we do is when we're thinking about a career or a job, we really compartmentalize the skills. And we really compartmentalize the industries as well. And the way I like to think of it is that anybody in our own lives, we're constantly solving problems. And it's just thinking about what's the way, what's the framework that I used, what's the model that I used to break it down. So it's just thinking about those things a little bit more strategically. And it's also thinking about problems that you have in your own life as a consumer. So, for example, when I had this hospitality client, right, somebody might come to me and say, oh, I don't have hospitality industry. I've never worked for a hotel. But if we think about it, we've all stayed at hotels. And so we can understand maybe some of the basic problems that you would have as a consumer and what was helpful in one experience versus another. So, to answer your question for problem solving, I think it's a lot about what we do in our day-to-day lives as a person, as a consumer, and just breaking that down a little bit, right? And how did we solve that? So for those of you who are listening to this, a problem or a challenge that you have might be, how do I figure out what to do in my career, right? What do I pick? What's the path? And so that's the ultimate problem that you have. And then in terms of solving it, it's what's your vision, right? So this is where you are now today, and where do you want to get to? And that's your vision. And so you've got this gap happening, and you just need to figure out what the steps are to getting there. So I would say, in terms of building that skill set, again, just practice based on your real life and any experiences that you and have the confidence in yourself that you do have that skill set. And as you practice it, you'll just get better and better at it.
That's awesome. That's great. And really, I like the fact that you bring out the point of we all have problems that we're solving every day, no matter who you are, and then just examining how do you go about figuring out the solutions and testing those solutions. So that's great. Great advice. Throughout your career, what do you think is maybe, since we're talking about problem solving and that kind of thing, what do you think has been the biggest struggle for you? And then how have you handled it?
What has been the biggest struggle? I think maybe for me, the biggest struggle happened when I was deciding to get my MBA, because I had that thought of, and I think we've all been there, and maybe you might be there now. Whoever's listening to this, is what do I choose? I love so many different things. And, how do I choose the right path? And this is actually something that comes up with my clients a lot, about what's the right thing. I don't want to make the wrong decision. And I have, two thoughts on that. So one thought is, no matter what decision you make, it's never the wrong decision, right? So make a choice for yourself that whatever you decide to do, whether it's opening up a flower shop, and that's actually something that I was thinking about, or having a tea company, which is something I'm passionate about, there is no wrong choice, right? Like, it will always be the right thing, because maybe you'll try it and it doesn't work out and it leads you to something else, and maybe it does work out. So the way that I decided was, I was very specific in getting aligned, like I said, with my inner passion and what I like to do. So I kind of separated the external passion from an internal passion. And what I mean by that is, externally, I love tea, right? And so I love drinking tea and all of these things. And so I thought, let me open a tea shop. But when I really thought about my vision was, I would love to speak to all of those customers coming in to the shop and helping them and talking to them and really just chatting with them. And every vision that I had, so with the flower shop, or becoming a florist, was making people happy. Right. And so I just kept thinking about what is at the root of all these things. And it was always about helping people and, solving something for them, making them happy. And then I thought about, how can I take that passion that I have in something that I love and turn that into a career? And there's actually a really beautiful concept, a Japanese concept called ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of it, Christina, but it's this Venn diagram of taking all the things that you love, that you're good at, and then combining them with something in the world that can be a career for you. So I think for me, that's how I got through that struggle, was combining all those things, thinking about what the theme is, and then thinking, okay, consulting is the right path. And I just always had this in my mind, that no matter what, it's the right path. If it's not, I can still go do the flower shop. I can still, have the tea shop. I can still do all of those things and try it. But the most important thing for me was to be in action.
I think that that is awesome. Number one, like I really enjoyed hearing about the fact that it's like the intrinsic versus the extrinsic. Because I think a lot of times we put way more focus on that extrinsic piece of it. Like, what do I want to do? Like the tea shop or the flower shop, and not really getting to the root of what is it about that, when you're making those decisions. And then the fact that you're talking about that it isn't the wrong decision. I think a lot of times we are afraid to take action because we're afraid of taking that step and it being wrong and being a mistake, and not really realizing that there's a learning experience from that. I'm going to learn something. If I go out and I try something, I'm going to learn from it, and be able to take away that experience. And I really appreciate that you shared that with us. That's really great information.
Yeah, I find that's the thing, the fear that stops us, and I feel like in the moment that you decide, out of all the options that you have, the moment that you decide, that instantly builds your confidence because you were able to get over that fear. So I feel like it's so important, to recognize that you have a fear. We'll always have them. New fears will always pop up, but it's so important to just recognize it as a fear and not the truth, and then move on, from that. And then the next time it happens, and then as you, like you said, flex that muscle, you get more and more confident that I know what I'm doing, I'm making the right decisions. And it's just really a nice boost.
Absolutely. And I think I'm wondering, well, I have my own philosophy, but I think that part of that is for the first 12 to 16 years of your life when you're in school, avoiding failure is like, failure to be avoided at all costs kind of thing. And so I think part of that makes us that fearful to try something that we're going to fail, that isn't going to be the right answer. And life just isn't like that. You got to get out there and try stuff, and maybe you make a mistake, and that's okay, because again, you're learning something from it. And you've talked a lot about your intrinsic reason for doing this and really examining your essentially like what your why is, what's going to make you the happiest. But I'm just wondering, so if you have a maybe an anecdote or something where you can share with us, maybe the most rewarding thing that's happened through following your passion with us.
Yeah, I think when I got into consulting, I think there were two things that were really rewarding for me, or I should say, I got onto this path, which included the MBA, is when I made that decision to invest in myself, because MBAs can be quite expensive, and it honestly instantly changed my life because I was saying yes to myself. So it was something, like you said, felt really risky at the moment. There was a fear of failure. What if I do all this? I spend 2 years, it doesn't work, all of these things. But really, the second I said yes, my life was transformed. So as soon as I said yes to Georgetown University, I got there. It's going to sound so funny, but I lost about 25 pounds. And when I joined the program, I was a brand new person. So I've always thought of myself as being very, very introverted. And then in this environment, I had so many friends and connections and this network, and so many things changed for me. And that really, it was like this kind of positive cycle of having confidence to do something and then getting more confidence and then more confidence and then more confidence. And so that to me was just so rewarding. And then when I got into consulting and I landed my first job, which was my dream job, it was really rewarding for me to help not only my clients and making an impact for them, but it was everybody that I was working with, because I had so many folks on the team that were, less experienced, let's say, in their careers, just starting out, making an impact with them and getting that feedback that I was able to help them and help them, uncover their dreams. So I think all of those things were so rewarding for me.
Absolutely. And that realization that once you said yes to yourself, that things changed for you, I mean, that really is, that does have a huge impact. And then once you say that yes to yourself and you get over that fear, that first step, um, it's like you welcome the universe into bringing all of those amazing things into your life. So it really is, it can be scary, but it can be the best thing that ever happens to you, ladies,
Yeah.
honestly and truly. Um, and so that almost kind of like leads into the last question that I have for you, which is, how is this different than what you thought it was going to be? Like when you first set out, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go into consulting and everything, versus now, how is it different?
So one of the biggest differences was, you when you come out of your business school and you have all these ideas and you're so excited to go into the world, you're also thinking about like, I'm going to recommend all of these things and this company is going to do it and it's just going to work. And sometimes you don't realize the biggest, just like it's really tough for us to change, it's the same with organizations, right? And so anything new, it's, of course, it could be the best idea in the world, but I found that the larger the organization and the longer that they had been around, it's sometimes that much more difficult to implement the change. So what I didn't anticipate is how long it takes to make changes and how sometimes arduous that road can be. So I think that's the biggest difference. And I've learned to be okay with the solution just being the recommendation. So the other thing is that a lot of times you may recommend something to a company or, even to a client, and they may not implement it or they may not do it or they may not do it anyway, for a while. And that's okay. Being okay with that your work was done in just doing the strategy and assessing and all of that, because again, it's so hard for people to adopt something new. So as much as we want it, and as much as I want the client to change or the organization to change, it's kind of like ourselves. It's like we're not ready to do something until we're ready. And so anyone can come with all these suggestions and, this is how you should improve, but that change, that desire to change is internal. So that took me, a little bit to realize and learn.
I can imagine, because I can imagine that it's very frustrating because, again, you've paid me money, you hired me, you paid me money to do this, and then you're not going to do it. Yeah. And it's hard, I would think, too, to not take that personally as well, because this is something that is, again, you're following what it is that you're wanting to do, which is helping people and then bringing them that solution that they've asked for, and then they not do it. Yeah, that's got to be, I would think, something to get adjusted to for sure.
It happens all the time, right? It happens all the time. And the one piece of advice I have for you, which is something I said before, is organizations are just made up of lots of people. So organizations behave the same way that a person would in their day-to-day life, right? And so I have so many examples of this. So like you hire, let's say, a fitness instructor or a dietitian, and you hire them because they're an expert and you hire them to solve a problem, but you may not follow that diet plan or the fitness plan that they gave you. So it's just the same with organizations. And so I think knowing that and being really comfortable with that is very helpful.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Ladies, be sure to scroll down below the video. There's a written portion of the interview, and then below that is the comment section. So be sure to put your questions and your comments down in there, and she will come back and answer them for you. Until then, you guys have a great day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.